What's up, everybody? I got Kade here. Kade is a client at Ascension. And real quick, brother, could you let everyone know what your business is?
Yeah, so we have Brewster Consulting Group, really originally named for sure, my last name. But we are basically an analytics firm. So we help companies build enterprise data systems. So that could be as simple as building like some BI reporting, or as complex as building a data warehouse, data lake, and tying multiple systems together. And so we primarily focus in manufacturing, healthcare, and financial.
Cool. Yeah, enterprise companies. What kind of, because you spun up a cold email campaign, what kind of results did you get with that, targeting those people?
Yeah, we got good results. So we spun up a lot of cold email campaigns, actually, which that was probably like the hardest part, was getting the copy right with the specific people that we were looking for, because we operate in different industries, like being very specific within those industries, having landing pages for those industries, that type of thing. But we got really good success. We did. So when I first started in Client Ascension, we spun up 30 different Gmail domains that we use. And so we send about 50 a day on each email in each domain. So 1,500 roughly a day. I should have actually done the math before, but on average, we probably get 15 to 20 solid leads a month. A lot of those don't pan out. We probably get like 15 to 20 that come from our cold email campaigns that we run.
Yeah, nice stuff. And these are like proper qualified people as well, which I think is like...
Yeah. So we pull all of our lists. And so like these are like, they're COOs, CIOs, sometimes the CEO if it's a little bit smaller company, but they're like the C-suite people that we want to talk to inside of these organizations.
Yeah. So it's a ton of domains. So at this point, you probably reached out to, I don't know, to tens of thousands of people. How many deals do you have in the pipeline right now? Like, do you think are going to close?
I think when I was looking this morning, we had 28 right now. Those won't all close, but we have like 28 active deals like in our pipeline that we're working. Our conversion rate overall is about 18%. And so that's from opportunity. Obviously, as it gets farther in the pipeline, it's a little bit better. I would expect probably out of those, we'll get at least 5 or 6. Maybe a few more. They're different sizes, some of them are bigger than others, but like in general, we, over the last couple of months, pretty healthily, I think last month we closed 4 or 5. This month we're on track to do pretty similar. So pretty good numbers for us.
Yeah, I think that's super important, particularly because it's enterprise. Like, what's the alternative? Google Ads spending $10,000 to get a client as opposed to $500 a month on cold email.
Yeah, we've tried the ads, and it's just tough because it's like when you catch people for what we do, generally you've got companies that are thinking about doing it. And it's kind of one of those problems that is like, there's a point in their life where it makes sense, right? And it's like, generally it's growing companies. A lot of times you see it when they hit 100-ish employees or more. And now all of a sudden they've got 5 or 6 different systems. Happens a lot with like SaaS companies who have built technology and they're trying to report to their clients, especially if they're business to business. They're trying to give like really good reporting to their clients, maybe on app usage or something like that. And they can't effectively do it. And so there are kind of like lines of demarcation in a business life cycle where it makes sense for us to go in, and we need to hit them like right there. And if we've hit them with Google Ads, but there's just so much noise out there and it's hard to stand out. We kind of are different than a lot of people they're going to talk to, but in order to tell them that, we've got to be able to have a conversation. And cold email is really effective because it's like, we've been thinking about this, and then we're in your inbox saying like, hey, let's talk about this.
Yeah, really true. If you had to assign a number, like what's the ROI in cold email for you?
For us?
Yeah.
I mean, it's so cheap. It's massive, right? Like, because we've got like a lot of our deals are, just to give you an idea, a lot of our deals are $5K a month, right? And generally we'll keep clients for like a year plus on that. So that's $60K in a year. Like you said, it costs probably less than $500 across the cold email software, domains, all of that stuff, like to actually do it. Now, we use ZoomInfo for contacts, which is fairly expensive. But even if you throw that in there, right, like $2,500 a month roughly, you're still talking about like, say it's $3,000 a month if you use the contacts, which I would definitely use something cheaper than ZoomInfo in retrospect, which is what we're going to do like once we're done with them. But $60K a year, one deal is $5K a month. So that's positive ROI. Right.
Yep.
And then every deal on top of that bill. Not to mention, like we had one deal earlier this year that was $65K one time and we were done. We have a $450,000 deal that the proposal is out to the client right now. Right. So just like that one, and those deals aren't that rare. Like you don't land one a month, but you could land one a quarter. Right. And it wouldn't be that rare. So like there's a lot of stuff where there's just great opportunities out there. So I mean, it's in the thousands of percentage, whatever the math is, that you're going to get out of that. If you can get people to respond, if you can get the copyright and make sure that you're landing in the inbox, it's huge.
Yeah. It's quite literally in the thousands of percent of return. So are you planning to ramp it up? You're got 30 domains. Like, why not just do 60 or 70?
Yeah. We've thought about it. We might. Right. Like, and we've been looking at, I know this is not what this is about, but like ListKit doing that and getting more leads that way. Cause the biggest, like our cap, honestly, is how many leads we can pull to like put into the campaigns. Right. Like, that's the thing that is our limiting factor right now.
Yeah. That's, I feel like this happens to me. You'll oscillate, and you'll probably felt it before too, where it's like, all right, yeah, cool. The 30 domains is working. Like, let's just go psychopath mode and email every single human that you could conceivably ever get.
Like, how do I pull just like the U.S. Census Bureau and just like
so what do you think? What do you think most people run in a business like yours and they can't grow it? Why do you think that is? Like,
so I'll speak to businesses like mine specifically, because I think it's like a lot of times, a lot of the people. So my background before I started the company, I spent 10 years in the corporate world doing a lot of the same work, right, and then kind of branched out on my own. And most people who do something similar to me are very similar. They probably actually. Most of them are in their probably 40s and have spent 20 years in the corporate world, right? And I think that the thing that they get is most of them build through referrals, like contacts that they've made from the corporate world. And so like that's their way of like building the business, and it works pretty well for them, but it's harder to scale up, right? You only have so many contacts and networking that are going to need business in that. If you really want to grow, that's tougher. And I think they really know their stuff, but what they run into a lot is getting enough at bat to get volume, right? Is like they have pretty good success if they can get in front of a prospect because they know their stuff really well, but they just don't get enough at bats, right? And I think that's the biggest problem is, in fact, I've talked to multiple people kind of in that boat who are in similar businesses, and their thing is like, we have really high conversion rates when we get to talk to somebody, but like we just don't get enough meetings.
Yeah, it's that people are scared of the fact of how do I get more meetings? Where there's really only a couple of things that you can do. One, and if you're selling to enterprise, you better be prepared to spend quite literally tens of thousands of dollars on ads to get qualified contacts. Or you could just spin up a cold email campaign and email the decision maker directly at an already qualified company, which is just, it's as evidenced by you right here. It's ridiculously high return. Like, there's a little bit of effort involved in it. You got to respond to people and actually run a sales process, but like when you really, there's no reason why people should.
And that was the thing that I thought was like, we learned with you guys is like, it's not hard. We had one outsourced company that we paid, and we still work with them because they're good and they have an outside like external database that we use, but we paid them to do cold email before we ever got plugged in with Client Ascension. And they were running these campaigns for us, and we got some good leads from them. And we were thinking about it. That's kind of one of the things that prompted me to get into Client Ascension, was I was like, why can't I do this myself? Right? Like, it seems like it's fairly straightforward, and it really is, right? Like, it takes a little effort, it takes a little bit of learning, but like you can control that, and it's not that hard to do. And now when we have our sales meetings, like our team sales meetings, like we talk about like, okay, what are the levers that we control, right? Because we use some third-party vendors to provide leads, but like, what are the levers that we can control? And cold email is the one that we can control, right? Like, that's one that is completely in our court. We 100% control it. We could turn it up. We could turn it down. We can target a different population if we want to go with a slightly different offer, right? Like, you have complete control over that. I don't know why you wouldn't want that when you're trying to grow, because the hardest thing is like, you want to have predictable revenue and a predictable like sales pipeline, and that helps stabilize it so much.
Yeah, it's pretty much the only one person can handle tens of thousands of pieces of outreach when you just automate it correctly. I think where people screw up a lot is they'll like, oh, let me go hire someone on Fiverr to just do it for you, and then you like burn your main company domain, and you're sending to support at info at emails, and nothing happens, and they'll just write it off as this doesn't work. Or they look in their own inbox of cold emails that they get, and they get super angry at them because they actually are terrible messages, right? And then when you know how to write a message correctly and you start getting positive responses, you're like, oh, okay, now I don't feel like a spammer. This actually works. So it's really interesting, as obviously evidenced by you here. But brother, that's all the questions I have for you. Where can people learn more about your stuff? And I can link it in the description as well.
Yeah, 100%. So on Twitter, at Kade Brewster, Brewster Consulting Group, it's brewsterconsulting.io is the website. That's the best place to learn about what we're doing, about the company. We also have a YouTube channel that'll go along with that, and Instagram, Facebook, all the social links we'll put those in there. But yeah, man, it was great. Learned a ton. Incredibly valuable. Would encourage anybody, especially if you're struggling with the lead gen, like learn how to do it yourself. Learn how you can control it. Because like ultimately, if you're going to rely on third parties, if you're going to rely on these other parts, it's difficult because it's unpredictable and you just have to hope. But if you learn how to do it yourself, then you actually have control over how much you can turn up the lead.
Yeah. Appreciate it, brother.
Absolutely, man.